Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Anders Kristensen and Merjin Groot, who both have type 1 diabetes. So, Anders and Merjin, you want to come up? And then we're going to do Annemarie Bevers afterwards. So we'll start here with Anders first.
I'm Anders. I'm 17 years old, and I was diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 15 months. It was, of course, a hard time. I can't tell myself because I didn't feel it. Back then, I felt it, but I didn't know how to express myself. My parents had to manage my blood sugar, and they certainly had a hard time because I couldn't tell myself how I felt. Later on, growing up, I could tell, and I could tell the difference between me and my friends, not having that I couldn't eat whatever I would like to, that I would have to break it in classes or in at sports events because of my blood sugar, that I had to be dragged out of games just to measure my blood sugar and see if I was high or low, grabbing a juice or grabbing an injection either. It of course has affected my life. The worst thing about it is that sometimes you can't even feel that you are having a low or a high blood sugar. Sometimes running on the field during sports or wherever, you can't even feel that your blood sugar are either going low or high, and until it really gets bad. Fortunately, I haven't by myself fainted, but I know that it is possible if you don't check it in time, but you can get really low and having this feeling that you wouldn't even like to eat or drink whatever carbohydrates that you can get, which is the only thing that can higher your blood sugar levels. I've several times is the least to say. I've been pricking my fingers since I was 15 months old, on average 5 times a day. This has of course been a burden too. Not only is it a huge cost for the government in Denmark, but also it does take several minutes out of my day. The insulin injection is also something that I have to deal with several times a week. And in my childhood, I was on pen to go on first. And the pen, I was sort of afraid of it. It was the worst time of the day when I had to have the insulin injection. Now I'm so privileged to have an insulin pump, which I'm very glad that I have. And the matter for me is to get this thing out. I don't just want it to be a thing that privileged people who have really been on a list for several years can have the insulin pump, but I want the pump to become a familiar thing with to people with type 1 diabetes, that it is possible to get out, that it is possible to get for anybody, which it is not at this point of time. I of course also hope on a cure, but as far as we are now, as they told, it is probably not possible in my generation at least. But the sensors are getting much better, and having a sensor measures your blood sugar all the time, and you can tell on the insulin pump your blood sugar levels, and by that it is way easier to control your blood sugar levels. And therefore, that is what I hope for, to the gear to get out to everybody. That is, and to really improve the gear so it gets as well that it can almost control itself. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Anders. Anders, by the way, is from Denmark. And our next speaker is Merjin de Groot from the Netherlands. Merjin.
My name is Merjin de Groot. Sorry. My name is Merjin de Groot. I'm from the Netherlands, and I've had diabetes for 6.5 years. I still remember my diagnosis very well. It was the 4th of December, 2007. The 4th of December is like the day before Christmas in the Netherlands, because it's the day before Sinterklaas, which is kind of like Christmas. So on that day, I couldn't eat as much sugar as I hoped I would eat. So I was very disappointed with that. And that's just most I remember about my diagnosis. First, I'm gonna tell you something about hypos and hypers. Hypos are when your blood sugar is too low. My record low is 16. I was on my way back from school, and I just didn't feel good. So I called my dad, and he luckily was at home, so he could come over and bring me some apple juice, because otherwise I probably would have fainted. I have a hypo for about 11% of the time, according to my glucose sensor. And having a hypo means that you are very hungry, but with a special hungry, not normal hungry, and feeling very, very weak. Now something about hypers. According to my glucose sensor, I have a hyper for about 39% of the time. Hypers mean that you are very thirsty and have to go to the bathroom all the time and can't concentrate very well for example, for tests. So if I'm taking a test and I have a hyper, I'm pretty much bald. I'm gonna tell you something about sports now and diabetes. So there's this thing with diabetes and sports, that if I go over 220 when I play sports, my glucose goes up, and if I am under 220, my glucose goes down. And if I have a 220, it stays the same, but I don't feel good at 220. So that's pretty hard. I play field hockey 3 times a week, which is very hard. 2 practices and 1 game. It's very hard to get my glucose on good levels, because it's all on a certain time, so I have a deadline. And then I run 10 kilometers 2 times a week, which is, for diabetes, it's easier to manage, because I just eat a sugary drink before, and then after my values are still good. And I go to the gym, which doesn't matter actually. I'm gonna tell you something about the kit I use. So I, of course, have a glucose meter. I've pricked my fingers for 12,000 times right now, leaving scars on on these 2 fingers. Before I will have passed away, unless a cure comes up, I will have pricked my fingers 145,000 times. So that's about the glucose meter. I also have a glucose sensor, which is on my lower back, which sends information to my insulin pump. So my insulin pump can make a graph of how my values have been all day, and I can just look at my pump and see what my value is. So that's pretty handy. Also, I have an infusion, which is just like a sticker with a needle in it, giving me insulin. And I have an insulin pump, of course, which sends me a basal every hour. And whenever I eat something, I would have to inject myself with some more. Some consequences about having diabetes and high and low values is that whenever I know has the flu, I always get it, because if I have a hypo or a hyper, I'm more vulnerable for diseases when I have hypos and hypers. And another thing is that if I go to sleep, it's very important for me to have a good glucose level, because if I wake up with a too high value, my glucose tend to go up all day, and if I wake up with a hypo, I sometimes hallucinate in a very bad way. Just me laying in bed like, what's happening? So I sometimes, before I go to sleep, I would have like a 400, and I would have to be at about 100, and then I would indose myself with insulin, then wait 40 minutes for it to kick in, and then sometimes it wouldn't have worked, and then I would have to wait another 40 minutes, and sometimes after that I would have to wait another 40 minutes for my values to be okay. Last of all, I want to thank all scientists being busy with curing and improving life with type 1 diabetes, because they give me and the rest of the people better equipment every year. And if you have any further questions, please come to me after this meeting. Thank you. Merci. Dankeschön. Gracias. Grazie. Obrigado. Tak. Dank u wel.
Thanks, Merjin. And our next speaker is Annemarie Bevers, who's a board member of IDF Europe. Annemarie.
Is this something to click with, or the green one? How lucky am I? Listening to Merjin, it just feels like, what am I going to tell? Because it looks like my story is not so bad, but anyway. My name is Annemarie Bevers. I'm from the Netherlands, and besides being a board member of the International Diabetes Federation for the region Europe, I also have diabetes, so I have a double hat on today. That's why I feel the need to just show you some things about IDF Europe, because we are working very hard for people with diabetes. IDF Europe is an umbrella organization representing 66 diabetes associations in 47 countries across Europe. We represent people living with diabetes, but also the healthcare professionals. And IDF Europe provides essential expertise and up-to-date evidence on diabetes. For example, we have the diabetes policy puzzle, and it's already in the third year. And it's the only pan-European audit on diabetes epidemic and existing national policies and practices in Europe. And the latest survey, the latest production is the survey on access to quality of medicines and medical devices for diabetes care in Europe. And that's the first of its kind in the field of diabetes. But we also work a lot on raising awareness, for example, campaigning on World Diabetes Day. We have the IDF Europe Prize on Diabetes. There are two prizes, one for young researchers and one for a long-standing achievement. And I can advise you to go to the website of idfeurope.org, because I will keep it in a short way, but there's more to read up there. It's not easy for me to have a personal talk, because I'm very active in the world of diabetes, but I never want to talk about myself. So I hope this will go well. I just saw Merjin and I forgot your name, Andres. And they were very good. So these are some figures that we can expect until 2035. So I don't think this needs any comments. Just keep it in your mind by working on diabetes in any way. And then I go to the personal parts. There was a little girl Just like many others, for people who don't read Dutch, this says I was born like anyone else. And that was my mother, and she was very happy with me, and of course my father also. And then there was a picture. This is a special one because this is me on the right side and on the left side my sister. And she died at the age of 8 years. She was drunk in the water. You know that we have a lot of ice in the Netherlands when it's freezing. And she became under the ice. So she died at 8. And she already had some things, some physical problems. We never know what it should have been, but it's a special one. Then I grow up, and in the middle I'm there. So I was a little girl like many others, but also a little bit different from others. And I could tell you a lot of stories about it, but I think I'm only 8.5 minutes because it's 10 minutes time. So if you want to know more, just ask during the coffee break. I'll jump a little bit further in the year 1998. That was the year that made my life different than before, because I wasn't feeling well, but I couldn't put my finger on what was wrong. So my doctor picked up the signal and started research on several things. After half a year, still not feeling well, no diagnosis. I was sent to the hospital for a consult. So my doctor was saying, if you say something's wrong, there's something wrong, but we don't know what. After 8 months, still no diagnosis, still feeling bad. And then my question was, could it be possible that I have diabetes? Because my mother already had diabetes, her brother had diabetes, a daughter of her brother had diabetes. It was a strange question because I didn't have any specific symptoms of diabetes. So the question was raised. And then I knew life will never be the same. Because I asked the right question. And if you're wondering if that's me, yes, that's me. I lost my flower. It was on Queen's Day in the Netherlands. I lost my flower and I became a little bit sad. And I also felt sad when the diagnosis was brought up. I was having diabetes. At first stage, they told me it was type 2 because I get it not by being a child, but by being a grown-up, just like my mother had diabetes when she grew up. But indeed, it was genetically based, but because later on we learned that my brother also had diabetes, also at the stage of between 40 and 50 years. And then the question was raised like, okay, you say that I have type 2 diabetes, but Bart Roep from the Netherlands, he is working on the cure of diabetes. He said, no, you're not having type 2. I think you have type 1 or you have an in-between type or whatever, but you cannot have type 2. So maybe you have the LADA, or maybe it's the LADA 1.5. So I was feeling like, okay, I have diabetes, but what's going to come up, What's the difference? What do I need to learn if I have type 1, or what do I need to do when I'm a LADA? So I tried to find out if Bart was right, but he also told me that if there is more than 10 years between the diagnosis and the research, probably the results should be negative because you cannot find the anti-GAD. I was tested for that. Everybody knows probably what it is. I wasn't aware of it just by the time that I was tested. So it was negative. Nowadays, to be honest, I still live with the question about what type of diabetes I have. So when you are talking about type 1 or type 2, I think I was asked to be here because I'm not having type 1, I'm not having type 2. And if I'm making a note like, who cares? I can say who cares, as long as I get the right treatment, as long as it's the treatment that makes me feel good. But the question is still there. For me, it's just a matter of quality of life. It's not what I have, it's not what I get, as long it's my quality of life. So I feel like I'm carrying a backpack all the days, besides carrying a handbag with all kinds of things in it. Never forget to leave home without my devices, without something to eat, or without my telephone. So I really need something to take with me. And I think I put one slide. I'm going a little bit back because I missed something. This is what I'm carrying, the backpack, from the beginning. Lots of changes in therapy. Lots of complications like liver, inflammations, geropathy, stomach, thyroid gland, allergic reactions, etc., etc. And it's a little bit the same as what my mother had, so probably I not only inherited the genes for diabetes, but also some others. I'm not a regular patient. I'm not sure if regular is the right word, with regular symptoms. As you go back in time by how diabetes was diagnosed, it was not like I was thirsty and had to go to the toilet often. I'm not fitting in the regular healthcare treatment. And one thing which makes me angry is that I'm always struggling for being heard as a non-regular patient. If you see your healthcare professional and you say some things about, look, if this or that, you are the expert, but I know for myself what's going on, and etc. Will you please listen to me? Well, listening is one. Acting by listening is two. So sometimes when you have some problems, you can be in the hospital for 3 months and they still don't know what to do because I'm not a regular one. So that's not nice. It costs me a lot of time, a lot of energy. So it's a message for everyone who cares for that. And that makes me say that struggling for customized care and patient-centered care, not only the patient-centered care, but also the customized care is very important. And then I would come up with the one thing that I need in my life, that's quality of life. So everything I do, everything I say, it's based on quality of life. If I don't have quality of life, I don't like life. So what do I need? Or what do I think I need? I need a dialogue with all the healthcare professionals, because I'm not only having one, I have more healthcare professionals. And if you have more, well, you could say there is a personalized dossier or whatever, but it doesn't work in practice. So how can they communicate? How can you put all together? I think there should be more dedicated research on finding the right number of diabetes. So not only the 1 and 2, but also the other types, because who knows how many there are and how many there are to come up. And that means that there also should come more information about the different kinds of diabetes and how to treat it personally. So you can start by reading the guidelines and put the guidelines on a person, but please listen to what the person is telling, because it's not always fitting in the guideline. And I think that every country has its guideline. I'm not sure if Europe has one guideline that every country use. I don't think so, because they are also changing the guidelines. I also think that healthcare professionals should be aware that listening is important, listening and acting. And if they are listening, please make a discussion with me and help me to make choices, because I think that the healthcare professional is the one that knows all the technical things and all the things he should know, but I'm the one who could make the choices. Am I going to put myself on a combined therapy or not? What are the pros? What are the contras? So I need the information just to make me help to make my own choice, because that's me. I would like to make my own choice in everything, not only on diabetes. And now I'm looking to you. I would like the idea of more use of pharmacogenetica. And that means that it's more based on the person. What's good for you is not good for me, or I'm responding in a different way. So find out why and what's good for the person. And another thing is, and it's not common if you ask it, not in the Netherlands, I'm not sure how it's in other countries in Europe, I would like to have DNA profiling, because what else is coming forward? What kind of things are you carrying with you? Because, for example, I have a niece, the daughter of my brother, and she is in the family ranking, and she's now 26, and she asks me sometimes, would you please measure my blood sugar, because I'm not sure what I have, and I'm not sure, maybe I have diabetes. So what's the ranking in, you know, the mother, the daughter, the father? We all have diabetes. Is she also having diabetes in the future? And then I asked her, would you like to know? And then she said, no, not yet, because I think I also would like to have some children. So if I don't know, I just have my children. So it's, well, it's difficult, but for me it's important to know what else can I carry, what else is coming up. So that's my advice to everybody. And then I would like to have the tailor-made, you already mentioned it, not only patient-centered care, but also tailor-made medicine. That's important for all the persons, that every individual has a different DNA, a different profile. So my team is from one size fits all to tailor-made. So I think it's a nice one to start with for IMI and GDRF. Besides thinking about the type diabetes that is not fitting into one or fitting into two, so that's probably new, but I can advise you to do it. You make me happy then, but I'm just me. And what I would like to have in the future, how can we make my handbag and my backpack less heavy? So if you are able to do that, maybe before I'll die, but otherwise for the young people who are coming forward, I would like to thank you for that. And as you already said, I think that time for questions will be at the coffee break. Thank you.